Hi, we're here at Bleach House Library, and today I nabbed Orla McAlinden on her way back from the BBC, if you don't mind, from the BBC to Bleach House Library.
I'm so famous.
Yeah,
so famous.
And we're here basically to talk about her amazing book, The Flight of the Wren. Now, this is her second book. The first one I also loved, which is a collection of short stories, The Accidental Wife. You can read my reviews of that on the blog. Excellent, excellent stuff. This one, though, is what we're going to talk about. Timing, Orla, what? With the movie Black 47 and everything, you have landed on your feet.
I am such a genius that when I started to write this book 4.5 years ago, I knew psychologically by the power of magic that Black 47 was going to be released this year.
Absolutely. I mean, everybody just sits there all day thinking, when is the next famine thing going up? Let's write a book about it right now.
Actually, talking about timing, the real irony is that one strand of the book is set during 1919, during the Spanish influenza outbreak, and in a couple of months we're going to start celebrating the centenary of the Spanish influenza and the end of the First World War. Now, when I set out to write this book 4.5 years ago, if I had imagined in my wildest dreams that this book wasn't going to appear until the tail end of 2018, I probably wouldn't have finished.
You would have just had enough.
So there was nothing, there was no preconceived cleverness on my behalf. The book is the book it is, and it has taken the length of time it has taken, and it has managed to arrive on the heels of the first ever real feature film about the Irish Famine and on the heels of the centenary of the Spanish influenza outbreak, completely by chance.
Okay, so we would just give a quick rundown basically of what the book is about for anybody who hasn't been following my tweets.
Outrageous.
How dare they?
Where have you been?
Okay, so this is the story of Sally.
Sally Mahan is a 14-year-old girl. She's an only child, and the book opens in 1848. So the potato blight, which causes what we call the Irish Famine, other people would call it other words like genocide. But what is commonly known as the Irish potato famine is actually over.
Right.
Okay, so next year's crop is going to survive. A significant proportion of this year's crop has survived.
So we meet Sally at the beginning where she has survived the famine.
She has survived.
But she's now alone, and she's only a kid.
She is.
Wandering the streets.
Her parents have both died abruptly of typhus.
Okay.
The Irish potato blight killed 1 million people. But out of that proportion, we don't know how many died of actual starvation and how many died of the diseases that swept through the country afterwards. And they were taking their toll on a population that was barely skin and bone. So when an infection arrived on top of that, really, it was the end for a lot of people. And Sally's parents have both died within a couple of days. And as the book opens, she is lying on their grave.
Yeah, it's very, very, very emotional, but you really connect with her straight away, and you really feel the pain and the loneliness of her being on her own. And we follow her where she's trying to move on through the streets of Ireland and try and find some kind of a life, and she encounters the Wrens. Can you briefly explain what a Wren is?
Absolutely. In Ireland at the time, women had so few choices. There was the innocent child, there was the respectable married woman, there was the nun. Far fewer nuns than we imagine, but they were the pinnacle. They were the pinnacle. And then you have the women who fall through the cracks, and they are beyond society, they're beyond the pale. And Sally falls in with the Wrens. The Wrens are the lowest of the low. You really can't drop any further down in Irish society. They are women who are keeping body and soul together through prostitution, among other things, but primarily the actual money is coming from prostitution. And they get their nickname, the Wrens, the Wren women, because they have fallen so low in society that they actually live outdoors.
So they create like nest-like environments, as you said, beyond the pale. Yeah. And this is near barracks, near army barracks, and
they're on the Curragh of
where they can make their living, per se.
There are Wrens in other parts of the country. There are Wrens around every major British Army barracks and encampment in the country. They're not always called Wrens, but in Kildare they are called Wrens because they are literally living in and under the furze bushes like birds. And some of the shelters all the shelters are basic. We, in our society, wouldn't imagine for a moment that you could put a wild goat into the homes that these women are living in. But
the research was amazing. Like reading the descriptions of these places, you could actually feel, you can really feel the temperature, never mind the atmosphere.
Well, thank you.
Do you live in a little...
I could walk to the Curragh in 20 minutes from my front door, and it is the coldest and bleakest environment you could imagine. It's an enormous plain, it's tens of thousands of acres. The wind races across it off the Dublin mountains, and the first thing it hits is the town of Newbridge, and it hits you like a slap in the face with a packet of frozen peas. To be out in the Curragh on a winter's day, inadequately dressed, without your gloves and your hat and your coat, is a really miserable experience.
So
I can't imagine
what it was like. Plus, you know, she would have had these women would have had no flesh on their bones at this stage. They were literally coming through a famine. They have very little access to food, no sanitation. Their health would be, considering the roles they're playing, their health would be not great.
Their average lifespan is well below 40 years of age.
So Sally makes the decision, among others, to actually perform a small crime in the hope of deportation.
That's right.
Making a decision that I'm sure many millions of people have done over the years, but I just really connected with this story to do something. It wasn't even that bad.
Oh, it was dreadful. It was a terrible crime in its social environment, because they actually set fire to the property of a wealthy landowner.
How very dare they?
So it's a crime without violence, but it's a crime against property. And we're still living in the era where people can be incarcerated indefinitely for debt. So property and the destruction of property is considered beyond the pale. And this is agricultural property as well. And the weather has been horrendous. So they set fire to some bedding, to a straw, a rick of straw. And that straw will not be replaceable because the weather that year the summer was horrific. And it's a very serious crime. And they opt for that crime because they know it carries a sentence of transportation. And transportation for them really is the key. They need to get the hell out of Ireland. So it brings us then on this, I'm just going to say it, amazing roller coaster of it's the longest boat journey ever. You feel like you're on it with them. Absolutely amazing. But this is a gang of women. And what happens when you put a gang of women together? There's always going to be the bitch. There's always going to be someone got your back. Well, every society has a hierarchy. Yeah. Absolutely. And the hierarchy almost always ranges from the strong to the weak. And if you put 250 people together in an enclosed environment like a ship, you are very quickly going to get a hierarchy. And you're also going to get little mini rebellions and what have you. Now, it's not a spoiler to say that the women are on the ship. In the very opening pages of the book, we do know that Sally has survived and that she has reached adulthood. So it's not a secret to let you know that she battles against the odds and she does survive the journey. Other women on that ship don't. Do not. But you have such a great way of linking them all together that all the way through you're thinking some of these women were never going to survive this journey. They just didn't have the fight in them anymore, mentally or physically. So again, I applaud you for that. But that ship journey, I'm still kind of feeling it. There are three main fictional characters in this book. Sally Mahon, who is the hero. Patsy O'Hanlon, who comes from Armagh, where I'm from. I wanted a Northern Irish girl to be a pivotal role in this book because the area of Ireland that we now call Northern Ireland was extremely badly hit during the Irish Famine, and people don't always recognise that. It's not discussed as much. And Lurgan Workhouse, where Patsy has come from, had one of the highest death rates of any workhouses in the country, and that part of Northern history is not always acknowledged. And then the third fictional character is Nellie, who's an older Wren, and she is the main instigator behind the plot to get herself and Sally deported. Every other woman in that book who does anything of note is a real historical character. It's amazing. Your research is just immaculate. I didn't want, because they are real living and breathing women, I didn't want to hang the book on them. I didn't want to put words into their mouths, but I have found out as much as I possibly could about their crimes. and
giving them a voice.
I've tried to give them a voice.
You've done amazing. Guys, I can't recommend this book enough. Yes, Orla and I have met before. We are friends. I always throw this disclaimer in. But you know
it
me.
It would be hard to find a writer in Ireland
that
you wouldn't say that about.
Yeah. But I will never recommend something that I didn't enjoy, and I did enjoy this. I'm absolutely thrilled and honoured to know this one from the beginning. And I really, really, really check it out. You have to. It's an addictive read. And it's a very, very important part of our Irish history. Just get a copy.
Thanks get 6 copies.
Oh yeah, Christmas. Get 10.
Nothing says Happy Christmas
I'm really
like
sorry,
a book about the famine.
We're very busy now. We're going for lunch. So bye.
Bye.